Hey everyone, SweetJohnnyCage here, back with another guide for Elden Ring. This time I'm going to show you how to take down Radagon of the Golden Order and the Elden Beast. Before we actually fight the bosses, I do want to very quickly mention that after you defeat Elden Beast, you can still back up your save and select different endings by restoring the save. Elden Ring works like Dark Souls 3, where once you beat the boss, you select an ending. It's not automatic like other games. Okay, so Radagon is a really difficult boss, very befitting for this stage of the game. He has a lot of hammer swings that can do different things. There's a few you want to watch out for, though. When he charges up to do a backswing, he's always going to follow up. Same thing with the forehand. However, when the hammer glows for a backswing, that is going to result in him shooting gold onto the ground, and then he waits for it to explode. So he's actually vulnerable during that waiting period, so just go in on him. He can do an up scoop into a two-handed hammer crash. You can roll through that, no problem. He can be staggered, and believe it or not, he does have a pretty lenient stagger time. For Phase 2, he always starts it off with a glowing foot stomp. You can just jump over that shockwave. A little difficult to time, but once you try this boss enough, you'll get used to when he's going to move into Phase 2, so you know to look out for it. All of his moves in this phase kind of remain the same. However, they will deal more damage, and now he can teleport around. He starts using all sorts of incantations that you can actually get throughout the game. The most annoying of which is this one right here, where he shoots 5 orbs into you. Very, very frustrating, especially because he can do it coming out of a teleport. He can also do it while in midair. The only advice I have to give you is that after he's coming out of the teleport, pay very close to his hand and what it's doing. Alright, so this move here is really sick. You can actually roll through the shockwaves. You can jump over the first one, but the really important thing to notice is that there are 3 rings that spawn in front of him. You cannot roll through the shockwaves on those rings. So you want to make sure that you have some distance between you and the boss before you start rolling. Otherwise, you will get caught in those rings, and that's guaranteed damage. When the boss is teleporting, like I mentioned before, he can teleport straight into your face. It's very important that you roll backwards from that teleport explosion. Otherwise, you will take damage. This grab is a lot easier to deal with than you might think. All you want to do is stay very close to him and keep moving to the right. Eventually, the boss will stop tracking you and just grab. And then once he stops tracking you and you notice that he's kind of falling behind you in his turning animation, just roll and you'll be okay. So again, the rest of the moves are kept from Phase 1. The lightning bolt slam, you can roll through that and then just get away because he has a tendency to do big follow-up attacks after that. But not too much to worry about. As long as you roll away from the lightning, you'll be able to get away from him. So again, he can teleport in your face. Very important to look at what his hand is doing. If you notice that the hammer is being swung, just roll through that. Otherwise, if it's straight out, orbs are coming, and you gotta roll away from those and be very careful. You want to do your best. I know this sounds obvious, but you want to do your best to make the Radagon fight as clean as possible, because Elden Beast can be a bit of a mess. But that's where we're going right now. So Elden Beast is a really, really cool encounter. Quite something to look at for sure. But it has a lot of extremely deadly attacks. Attacks the likes of which you really haven't seen before in Elden Ring, which is kind of nice. So starting off, you can just run in on the boss, get a bunch of damage right away, and then eventually it'll start reacting. For the breath attack, you can just get right behind it. The breath should not hit you while you're trying to hit the boss on its tail. It'll swim away. And then it has a few sword swipes, easy enough to avoid. We'll talk about the gold ones in a moment. So when the boss sticks its sword into the ground and it starts glowing gold, you want to try to get near its tail. This way you can avoid the shockwave. You can roll through all of it, not a big deal, but you want to just try to get away. When the boss swims away, starts glowing, and then flies up into the air, you'll notice a ring in the air. There's 2 different attacks that the boss can do with these rings. If it's just one ring, then all you got to do is run back, jump over one ring, and get out of the outer ring before the explosion. You got to be careful, though, because the boss will move as you're running and start readying another attack. It shares a Starfall ability, or Star Cloud ability, very similar to Aztel, Natural Born of the Void, who you may have fought earlier on in the game. Just get out of the cloud, wait for the explosion, and you'll be okay. So the boss can begin to slam its sword in the ground while it's glowing gold. Then it has a carving ability, and then it can shoot a rune arc at you. Luckily, I have enough health to just eat it. However, you may not. So when you notice the boss's sword glowing gold as you're close to it, just get ready to roll out of the way of big slashes and then somewhat of a slam afterwards. So when the boss's sword begins to glow at a distance, he's going to start shooting rune arcs at you. These need to be avoided. You can roll through them. Getting the timing down, especially from a great distance, is a little tricky, but I'll show you a clean one a little later on in the fight. Throughout the fight, the boss can swim away, and when it comes out of the water and just starts glowing, you want to untarget the boss and then run in any one direction. You're going to avoid the starfall attack that comes. I noticed that if you are targeting the boss while running from that, the camera will kind of auto-correct you, and then you're going to end up running into the stars. But if you just untarget and then pick a direction, you should be completely fine and avoid all of it. You do want to watch out for any big body slams. Those are telegraphed by the sword, more or less, but if you're close to the boss, it'll just look like a body slam. It can rake the sword in a backswing, followed up by a regular swing, and then a bit of a slam down. Those are easy enough to avoid. No special magic is coming from those. When you notice that the boss's left hand is glowing purple and it's close to you, it's going to slam it down, and then stars are going to explode after it. You can just roll straight into the boss, maybe adjust to the left a little bit. This way you can get away from the starfall explosion, maybe throw in a roll to just ensure you don't take damage from that, but not too difficult to avoid. If you ever deal enough damage to the boss and it gets staggered for a riposte, the riposte location is its chest. I thought it might be the head, that's why you saw me running around like a chicken with my head cut off for a second. I just didn't know where to go, but the location is its chest. Okay, so occasionally when the boss gets low on HP, it'll fly up into the air and do a different ring attack. You can see that this is now the Elden Ring up in the air, and what this is now there are several rings for you to jump over. I mistimed this, so I am going to just bite it, but it's 3 rings followed by a big explosion if the Elden Ring shows up. However, if you are on the ground and you notice that the boss is going to send out a rune arc beam at you, what you want to do is just stay on the ground and the rune arc will go right over you. So it's not the end of the world if you get caught in that ring explosion. As long as you don't die, just wait to see what the boss's next attack is, and you may be able to just stay on the ground and completely avoid it, giving you some time to recover once you do end up getting up, because chances are the boss will just sort of fly away for a second. That purple star cloud does have a big travel distance, so just be careful. Here is the 4 dodges for the rune arc beams. Not too difficult once you kind of recognize what the boss is doing. The boss really only ever does that when you're far enough away, and you do not want to roll once the sword is swiped. You want to roll when the beam gets close to you. The beam does have a pretty decent travel time, so just look at it, make sure you understand what's coming, and then you'll be able to roll through it. Right here, I did not disconnect from the boss with my camera, so it auto-corrected while I was running, and I got hit by a bunch of those stars. But whenever you see the boss start flying away, it's better to just disconnect your camera from it, untarget it. This way you can run in one direction without getting auto-corrected, and you'll be able to avoid the stars. There is another attack that the boss does. It's the Elden Stars incantation. I actually have it on my bar here. That ability, I hate to say it, I don't exactly know how to avoid other than just running away from it. The stars don't deal too much damage. However, if you get hit by the bigger explosion, it can stagger you. My advice for that ability, however, is to just keep an eye on the boss. Make sure you're avoiding the boss's abilities as Elden Stars is out. Eventually, Elden Stars will go away, and then you can continue with the fight like normal. But just watch out for the boss's abilities, because for the most part, Elden Stars is just there to pepper you with tiny bits of damage, distract you from the boss, and then ultimately the boss will probably just cut you down with a sword. So if Elden Stars is out, just try to deal with it, keep an eye on the boss, and you'll be okay. But that's it. That's Radagon and the Elden Beast. That's the final boss of the game. If you have multiple endings unlocked, you can quit the game and back up your save, and then, go see the endings if you like for the different trophies. I will say, if you have the Frenzied Flame ending unlocked, you are kind of locked into that ending. Unless you go beat Melania, then you'll get an item that allows you to undo that ending, and that unlocks the rest of it. For Ranni's ending, there will be a summon sign on the floor, and for the rest of them, you just want to touch the statue in the middle, and you'll literally be able to select an ending very similar to Sekiro. And that's it. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment. I'll do my best to help you out. If you're looking for more guides for Elden Ring, there are more to come, even though this is the final boss. Please subscribe to the channel so you get alerted when new guides go live. If you're interested in supporting the channel monetarily, please consider becoming a channel member by clicking the blue join button below this video. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter and join my Discord. The links for those are in the description below. As always, I'm SweetJohnnyCage. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.